Hi, everybody. Dana Litwin here again, and welcome back to Priceless Advice with and for leaders of volunteers. And today I have a very special guest, longtime friend and colleague in the virtual space as well as in person, Severina Ware CVA. Welcome to the show. And I'll tell you a little bit about Severina. She is the Director of Volunteer Services at National Breast Cancer Foundation in Frisco, Texas. And I'll make a note that I am in San Francisco, so never call San Francisco Frisco, only call Frisco, Texas Frisco.
Correct.
She is passionate about volunteerism, self-advocacy in the workplace, and empowering volunteer managers to challenge themselves. She brings over a decade of experience in nonprofit organizations, specializing in volunteer program management and community engagement. Welcome, Severina, to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm so thrilled to be here with you, Dana. Thank you for having me.
Yay. So we wanted to mainly talk about this subject that you are very passionate about, which is that self-advocacy for leaders of volunteers. And that's something that I've certainly been talking about and promoting and trying to amplify for all of my career, not just for myself, but for all of our colleagues with Alive and the various other organizations that we're each involved with, being a CVA. What do you think is the most important thing for a leader of volunteers who's early in their career or maybe isn't as confident to know about self-advocacy? And how does that prop them up for success in the years to come in their career?
Great question. I think as someone who learned about professional self-advocacy a lot later in my career,
Mhm.
something that I would tell someone who is just starting out entering the field is to never be afraid to ask. And that is something that I didn't have any concept of. It
Mhm.
was just one of those things where I got the job and it was like, okay, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do the job to the best of my abilities year after year and never really think about like, what do I want my life and my career like to look like in the next few steps. So it's if there was somebody that's just coming straight in, fresh out of college, jumping into the profession, it's think about yourself 5 years from now. Think about your career 10 years from now. Really start setting yourself up in that professional setting to know what to ask for,
Mhm.
to know how to ask for it, and to not be afraid to make that ask.
One of my favorite sayings of all time, and I can't even remember if it was one of my parents or grandparents, but I came from a lineage of, kind of self-starters and showbiz people. So we're always kind of like hustling and finding like, what's the groove? What's the next gig? What's the thing? And I really learned the lesson early of if you don't ask, you don't get. Now, that doesn't mean
Amen.
you don't step on people on the way up. You're kind to people. And the other kind of showbiz lesson in my family was, be nice to the people on the way up because you're probably going to see them on the way down because it's
Yes.
such a turbulent business.
Yes.
And I think, especially right now these days, nonprofit work is a turbulent business. And I think knowing what you want, asking for it, being, firm and polite, but insistent is the way to go. And I think persistence can outlast almost any obstacle that's in your way.
And I want to touch on something that you just said about
Hmm.
nonprofits being a turbulent business, because I think too often we forget that at the end of the day, even though we're doing this mission impactful work, it is still a business.
Right.
And businesses want to retain their employees.
Hmm.
They want to make sure their employees are happy. And they can only do that if they know what their employees are seeking. So if you never say anything and you're burnt out and you're like, man, it would be great to have an intern right now, but you don't know how to ask for that, nothing's ever going to change. You're going to continue just running yourself into the ground. So I really want to touch on like, hey, yes, we're doing mission impactful work, but at the end of the day, it's still a business. It is still a business. And employees make businesses continue to run and grow. So you have to feel like you're valued and you have to be sure that you're able to go and really advocate for what you're looking for in order to make that impact.
I'm going to yes and all of that. Hallelujah. Amen. Amen. All the good words to that. And I want to touch on what you talked about knowing your audience. That's another topic. It's been on the channel and some Tuesday tips, and other friends and colleagues of ours have talked about it. But I want to get your perspective on that, knowing your audience and not just advocating for yourself, but I had to learn the hard way. All these years later, I had to learn the hard way that not everybody has my point of view, not everybody has my communication style, and I've been pretty warm, open, extroverted person my whole life, so it always really hit me like a cold bucket of water when I'm like, hey, I want to do this thing with like happy, energy and enthusiasm. And someone's like, nope. And I'm like, I don't get that worldview. I don't understand why they would say no to that. And I had to teach myself different communication styles. Some people want to learn things, in a more analytic, like hand them a one-page graph, show them the numbers. Other people want an emotive narrative story or an anecdote about volunteer engagement. What have you found in your work, especially working with a foundation is always a little bit different than other kinds of nonprofits? What's been successful for you?
It's so funny that you say that, Dana, because I am very much the exact same way. I'm running into a room and I'm like, I've got a great idea. I know how we can do this. And they're like, no, not the time. And I'm like,
Wah,
but,
wah,
but
wah. Yeah.
yes, it's very much like cue the music, womp womp, and it's
Sad
like,
trombone.
but so to touch on what you said, I've really had to teach myself, and I have had to study others and how they take in information. I've had to learn from other individuals within organizations that I've worked with and for. It is very teamwork makes the dream work, and I
Hmm.
am not afraid to talk to different people within my organization that have worked with other people that I am trying to connect with and say, hey, can we just have a quick 10, 15-minute touch base? I'd love to pick your brain on this project that I'm working on and how I could potentially push the needle forward to get that yes. What can I do? You've worked with this person in this capacity, and it seems to be going well. How can I get to that point? Very much teaching myself that sometimes I have to take a step back. I can't just jump right in to it because not everyone has the bubbly woo positivity.
So, Severina, you were talking about also your learning journey on how other personalities and communication styles work. What's been one of your success stories around that?
I think my favorite success story what has to be so we do a volunteer awards every year.
Hmm.
And one of the things about the volunteer awards is I have a committee that I work with. So that is something that it's been a part of the planning process every year. I really wanted to ensure that someone was represented from every department to be on this planning committee. There was a lot of pushback. There was a
Hmm.
lot. No, no, we're too busy.
Yeah, you always hear
No,
that. We're
no,
too busy. We don't, yeah.
no, no. We don't think that would be valuable for our time. No, no, no. We just have so many other things that we're doing. It took me being very, very clever about who I was having conversations with and mentioning, like, oh, this is my favorite event that I enjoy doing. Oh, let me show you pictures from the past. To where I slowly but surely kept having those conversations, bringing different people in to the loop saying, "Oh, do you want to hear more about this event that we do? Like we're looking to include more people on our planning committee." And finally, I had that breakthrough where someone was like, "You know what? I could potentially spare somebody from my department to be a part of this committee." You can? Because this is the last department that I need someone to be on the committee. I didn't tell them that. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking that I'm like, oh, well, just go back to your team meeting and just talk about it. And let me know if this is something that you guys might want to be a part of. Can I please tell you, they came back and they were like, hey, so and so is going to be a part of the committee. She's at your disposal. Put her on the calendar invites. And I'm like, great. They had no idea that as I kept talking about it, and just slowly mentioning it and breaking down those barriers just by having simple conversations instead of just being overbearing and being like, hey, need somebody from your team to be on this committee.
I call that planting the seeds of
Planting
ideas.
this,
Seeds of ideas.
yes.
I talked about it. I first came up with it that, I mean, planting the seeds of ideas is not my original IP. I'm going to be honest about that. But I worked that idea like 10-ish years ago into carve your own path about, again, advocacy and just your career growth as a leader of volunteers that I first did at MAVA and a bunch of other conferences. But it really does, it's almost like if you think about it in a marketing terms of like a drip campaign where
Yes.
again it's that persistence. You're not wearing someone down, you're not making them miserable. That's the opposite of what you want to
Hmm.
have happen. But you just like casual conversation, having a cup of coffee or tea in the office, meeting in the
Yes.
kitchen, like, oh,
Lunch.
lunch, but doing that kind of persistent but friendly idea seed planting I have found to be the most effective versus I can do stuff by force of will. I can be pushy if I need to.
Oh,
And
same.
there's,
Like I can be incredibly persuasive
yeah,
and be like, "Hey, ooh, I'm right in front of you, so I'm not leaving until you say yes because I would like this to happen." I can definitely do that, but like you said, that slow just planting the seed and watching it just start to bloom until it finally like blossoms and you're like, "I've achieved it.
yeah.
This is what I was looking for." And it worked out great.
And the next level of that is what I call, it's not quite a Jedi mind trick, but it kind of is where uh, if you plant the seeds gently enough, people not only get buy-in but sometimes it gets to the point where they start to think it's their idea, and that's okay. If they've got the
Hmm.
buy-in where they're like, oh, because they've just unconsciously been absorbing it for however many weeks or days or months,
Yes.
and like, what's a good idea if we did this? So I've seen that happen. And instead of being like, that's my idea, I'm like, haha, yay. These are the droids you're looking for. And
Yes.
you will come to this committee and devote time because people need to understand it's not that there's not enough time in the day. It's how we prioritize the time.
Yes.
And so if you can convince someone with real information and to understand the value of volunteer services, the value of taking on a little more front-loaded work, just a tiny bit that pays off with less work in the long run, that it's working smarter, not harder. That
Exactly.
that can be incredibly, incredibly effective. And I also want to touch on kind of hot topics in the sector today. Are you working from home? Are you in the office? Is it a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both.
Hybrid
I'm very
approach.
fortunate. Yes, very fortunate to have a hybrid approach. So I do have a home office. I really enjoy my coworkers, so I do find myself majority of the week being in the office. But that's only because I just have a group of individuals that makes it very enjoyable. On those days when I know I need to hunker down and really get some focus work, I do have the option of working from home, which is nice.
Yeah, I have been working at home since 2019, and yeah, it can get a little lonely, and we had the pandemic and we had to work from home, and that's still going on. You can still, we can still catch germs from each other, but I think that hybrid
Mhm.
interaction is really important to team cohesion, and also being face to face and having that FaceTime that gets people to trust you and go along and be a little bit more easily convinced or persuaded with the value of working with volunteer services and improving that. What's been the biggest challenge lately for the foundation that you're working for? Are you seeing different patterns in philanthropy, or are things steady or unsteady?
Our biggest challenge is especially in my department, volunteer services, is meeting the need.
Hmm.
We don't have enough volunteer opportunities to go around for the demand of volunteers that are
Interesting.
trying to work with us.
That's a good problem to have.
And I, it is, and I frequently joke with people. I'm like, We always talk about the R's of volunteer management, and recruitment is one that I don't really have to do because my volunteers do that so well for me. And the opportunities that we do have, whether it's in person or when other people see different companies doing it, they speak volumes to what we're doing. And I have people just infiltrating my inbox. How do I get involved? How do I do this? I saw this. I want to do a packing party. Oh, these people were writing encouragement cards. How do I do that? Last year we sent out we made the switch of doing, we have people that will write encouragement cards. They'll write these cards, they go in our Hope Kits, which are specialized kits that go out to breast cancer patients. Last year, we sent out 19,000 of those cards. We have them on our shop. Volunteers can request them, they just cover the cost of shipping. We ordered 25,000 cards last year, sent out 19,000. It's October 9th, and the last time we pulled, we had sent out 17,000 of the cards since July.
Wow, that's
We've
fantastic.
had to order 25,000 more to meet the need because we have people that are like, I want to do a bulk order of 1,000 cards. And mind you, people, they get really nervous because they're like, okay, so you're sending all these cards out. Are you getting cards back? And I'm like, I literally have volunteers that proofread these cards every week
Mhm.
because without fail, when the USPS delivers to our office building and our office manager's walking through, I'm like, Hannah, thank you so much. And she's like, it's okay. And she's bringing in stacks of returned envelopes because people have written the cards and they're returning them. They're requesting more. We just have one volunteer who is so close to reaching her 100-hour mark. She's located in California. All she's done is written cards.
And that's amazing. And I'm a breast cancer survivor. I went through surgery and treatment in 2023,
Okay.
and so far so good. I mean, it's 5 years until you're super duper clear,
Yep.
but getting all the boob squish tests and all the
Yep.
scans, and they've got to figure out a more comfortable way to do that one day. But this is not the day that happens. Today is not
Trust
the
me
day.
when I say that we hear this conversation quite a bit with our
I'm sure
with our
it's
support group.
constant conversation. So this is a challenge that many other foundations and nonprofits, both in like health support services or any sector, they want to have this problem of more volunteers. And I've been in some organizations where certain volunteer roles, like they've got a waiting list, sometimes for months or years for certain specialized things that we just can't make more of them. But what's your strategy? Do you divert people over to other organizations that are either partner organizations or do similar things in the sector? Like, do you send people to like
Oh,
Leukemia Society and
a
Lymphoma
lot of the
Society?
time I do try to
Hmm.
direct people, but a vast majority of the time people are so dead set on wanting to be involved with our organization, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, that's great.
um, that we have been able to really start to grow out our volunteer opportunities to offer, like, okay, so you couldn't make it to our community packing parties, are one of the ones that's in person at our national headquarters. We every month every quarter it's themed. We give out like a specialized sticker that I think I have them. We give out a specialized sticker that goes with
Oh,
the
lovely.
different themes.
I love it.
Everyone wants to get in, everybody. But we can only have so many people in the building, fire codes and
Right.
everything, shifts. Now we have it to where we'll bring that experience to you. Like
Mhm.
we have it to where we can cater that experience. It might not have the stickers. We have a Spotify and Apple playlist with the same types of music that we have in our things. We'll send you everything that you need. People do fundraisers to host their own packing parties at their own locations. So there's different ways that people can get involved that's not just on site. Or people are like, I'm going to join the wait list, and as soon as somebody drops off, I'm in. And a vast majority of the time, that's what happens. I tell people, I'm like, join our wait list. Join our wait list. I can promise you the week of the community packing party, we tend to have people that are like, oh, this meeting got put on my calendar. I can't make it anymore. And It is my favorite. It's one of my most exhilarating experiences when a volunteer comes bouncing into our community packing party and they're like, I got off the wait list.
I'm in, baby. I'm in.
And they're
Doing
decked
it.
out in whatever the theme is because they were like, I still want on Amazon. I bought my look. And I'm like, yeah.
That's a great feeling. So, for others who want to duplicate that success in whatever role of having a waiting list and having that enthusiasm, I want to touch on what you mentioned that your volunteers do it for you. And I've talked a lot about, and plenty of other Priceless Advice guests and our friends and colleagues have talked about, the best volunteer recruitment tool or method is and always has been and shall remain word of mouth.
Mhm.
Someone's having a great experience, they're engaged, they're excited, they're connected, they're passionate, all the words, and they're telling other people. The opposite is also true. So if people are having a lot of turn and
Yes.
turnover, like, well, churn and turnover and recruitment challenges or retention challenges are always just a surface symptom of something else is bubbling underneath that is not clicking with people. They don't feel they
Yes.
belong, or the training, or there's some other barrier or hoop that they can't get through. Have you planned? Do you do messaging training to volunteers to just give them an elevator pitch, like a one pager of this is how you talk about the opportunity, or like how have you gotten them to be those great ambassadors for the organization?
I will let you know, it's one of those things where we haven't done any formal training. It just has worked out naturally. And my volunteers, a lot of the time, it happens when I'm in the office, I'm in the building, and I have built such a positive relationship with the volunteers that I work with that they know if they see me in the office and I'm not busy, they can easily pop in and say, Hey, Severina, I have this person who's interested in volunteering. I've talked to them about my experience. My volunteers, one of the things that I talk about a lot too is stories. Stories are so important to me. I just gave a keynote about being rooted in your power and your storytelling. My volunteers have really built a story on why they volunteer and why they show up. And our staff has been woven into that story to where I can sit down in the office that I work in and hear my volunteers talk about like what volunteering at our organization has done for them, what it's unlocked for them, and hear them telling this to someone who's brand new, like could be there for their first shift, and being like, you'll forever be changed
That's
after
the
this.
that's the secret sauce. You're in Texas, barbecue's the thing. That is
Yes.
that is the tastiest secret sauce is getting the volunteers to do that for you. I've done formal trainings around it. I've been in occasionally really fortunate situations where the culture of the agency is really positive, like it sounds like, at least in your department
Yeah.
and the
I will
foundation,
say,
and
my
that helps.
staff,
Yeah.
our staff, that was one of the things when I first started. I had the opportunity to sit down with our executive leadership team, and they were like, we want to be a premier volunteer organization. They were like, we want this to be a space where our volunteers feel valued, they feel appreciated, and they know that they are a part of our team. Our CEO will come in and he speaks to all of our volunteers. He tells them thank you. He gets to know them so much so that at our last big volunteer awards, one of our volunteers who received an award that night came over and she was like, I volunteer for one of the biggest hospitals here in Dallas. And I've never met the CEO, even though I've been in the same room as them. She was like, the fact that the CEO of this organization came up to me and was like, thank you. Thank you so much for showing up for us and for helping women. Now she was like, my night is made. She was like, I've never had that. And I've donated, I've given time, money, everything to be seen. Like, and he knew my name. And I'm like, that's what I need. That's what I want. That's where we're going to thrive.
And that's the success formula. And the constant questions that I get, through the channel or online or through my website of, I can't retain, staff feels hostile towards volunteer. It has to be a long-term intention to shift the culture, and you can. And volunteer services probably has more headcount than any other department. I've made that point many times before, that like leverage your people power, leverage your headcount. There's something that you can do within volunteer services of any organization that transforms how people communicate, respect for each other, understanding the value. I know if you could bottle what your CEO and that culture is, you could, we could be millionaires to bottle
I
that.
could, I
Yeah.
really could.
Yeah.
My CEO, my CFO, COO, my CPO, just our general staff who, when I hand off volunteers, there is not an ounce of worry
I,
because they are so attentive and so good with really tapping into that skill set. These aren't just workhorses.
right. Right.
These aren't just workhorses. Like they are so good at really having volunteers understand like this is how you're impacting the mission.
Yeah. So important.
This is how you're showing up. And I have to just give massive kudos to the teams that I have the privilege of bringing volunteers in for because they make it easy when it comes to like the volunteers do the recruitment, but the retention,
That's
that's
all internal. Yeah.
that's all
Yeah.
internal. And so
Yeah.
like the fact that I have volunteers that are like, whenever a reoccurring spot opens, add me to the list. I want to come in here and work with this team. And it's like they've built that. It's so awesome. It's so beautiful. It's so organic how it's all come together.
And that idea that we're all one team that's crucial. Like to me, that kind of trust is the foundation, and that kind of understanding of each other's value, and not just, oh, number of hours, number of warm bodies and volunteer services. Like that's the very most basic metric. And then you want to build on that with real relationships, clear, honest communication,
Yeah.
and having that openness. It's so fortunate that you stepped into a culture that already existed like that. Has the National Breast Cancer Foundation in Frisco, have they done service enterprise or formal training that you know of before or since? Or
We
did
have
they just
not.
happen? Then you just stepped into lucky land,
We have
Severina.
not. We have
Lucky
not.
land. Yeah,
You're
yeah,
absolutely right. Like
yeah.
I did. I came into a space where, to backtrack a little bit, I
Hmm.
didn't interview for this role when I originally
Oh, interesting.
stepped into this organization. I was thinking about moving into development. And then I remember I met with the HR director and she was like, "Are you dead set on development?" And I was like, I mean, she was like, "I'm writing a position that's meant for you." And I was like, okay. And so she sent it over to me and it was the volunteer services manager. Okay. And then next thing you know, here I am. And then within my first week, this is when I knew it was different. When I had that sit down with the executive leadership team about what they wanted volunteerism to look like within the organization, that's when I knew I had hit the jackpot.
Oh yeah, you're like,
Because
ah.
I don't think out of all the organizations that I've worked with, I've ever been able to get in front of an executive leadership team. As much as and like here, this is tip, as much as I know my worth and understand my skill sets and what I bring to the table, that has always been a challenge for me to get in front of the executive leadership team because it's like, oh, it's just volunteers.
And that's too common of a phrase that we hear from organizational leadership. And I've worked with, or created and helped found and worked with organizations specifically to change that conversation, to have funders and executive leaders understand the value of volunteers themselves, of services, of community engagement, that volunteer engagement spreads out to, like you said, development. You were heading towards development, donor engagement, advocacy, voters, any kind of support that someone wants to do to connect with your organization. All of that comes back to volunteer services in as the core of it. As we get through the last few minutes of our priceless advice together, any parting wisdom? And I'm also going to put how to get in touch with you on Connect on LinkedIn, which you've been talking
Yes.
about. Link it on LinkedIn, how to get in touch with you. Add that into the video description for Priceless Advice, but people can also, find you on the socials and do that. But what would be parting words of wisdom for people who maybe aren't in such a great culture like you happen to be in their organization?
Parting words. We all need to become better and more informed advocates. When it's all said and done, as professionals, we are so often required to juggle a number of different roles, a number of different tasks. At the end of the day, we're limitless. Like we know this. We really have to get creative in the manner that we take to advocate for ourselves. So while everyone isn't handed a beautifully baked apple pie that tastes amazing, sometimes you just have to think outside of the box, whether it's big or small. You have to find a way to really treat yourself to enhance your professional career. Like I said, we're not all handed a perfectly baked pie, but there are ways for you to really step outside of that box and find a way for your career to grow and matter.
And that is one of the best pieces of priceless advice that I've heard on the channel. Thank you so much, Severina, for joining today. It's been a minute. You've been on my list to have as a guest for a long time, so I'm glad we finally scheduled it and made it happen. Thank you so much for being on the show. And everyone, connect with Severina. If you're not yet connected, she's a great person to connect with, and she's got a lot of
Yes,
great, smart, wise things to say. So thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see you all next time.
this was an absolute delight, Dana.